Hey guys, what's up? Shadowlands back for another commentary. Today I wanted to go over a topic that a lot of you guys have asked about, where Combat Arms is heading. A lot of other YouTubers have been doing videos sort of on this topic over the past few weeks because, you know, it's been a big deal. There have been a lot of big updates recently, and people are interested, where's this game going? Should I quit the game? Should I keep playing? That's really kind of a personal decision, but I wanted to help give you guys a little bit of an insight as to where the game is probably going and what we're probably going to be seeing over the next few months to even a year. Obviously the game's going to be in a different place a year from now, probably, if it's even still up, so I wanted to help you guys get a little bit of foresight into what's probably going to be going on. So there have been a ton of updates recently, some good, some bad, and Nexon is setting itself up for a very specific path, and it's probably got a lot of things planned. Some have even already been leaked or announced, such as the weapon comparison system, but some things are less apparent or have been forgotten, actually, because a lot of these were actually leaked over a year ago, and some of them going all the way back to, well, what I'm about to talk about. First, let's not forget the weapons that Combat Arms has not integrated yet. We've seen lots of weapons on lists in the .res files of the game that have not been introduced yet. Let's not forget the K1A Camo, the K7 variants, the G18 SE, the K2 series. All of those were announced on a Combat Arms forum back in 2010, along with the L11 Arctic Wolf, the L11 Ghillie, the Minimi Parrot Camo, and a lot of these new weapons that we've seen up until now. A few of them weren't on the list, like the SR2 Varesk and the Groza. They were not on the list, but they were also new weapons. But a lot of the weapons we've seen that have been remake variants of existing weapons from back in 2010 have been made, which is kind of neat. And a lot of them were implemented in game, but about half the ones from the list were not ever put on. Now, if you want to actually see what it looked like, UCD had a video on it a while back. I don't even know if I'll be able to find it. If I do find it, I'll put it in the description below. But it had a screenshot of the forum post. Now, the forum has since then been deleted, so it's no longer there. But he had a screenshot of it, so I might be able to find it and show it to you guys. Otherwise, just look through his old videos and you'll probably find it. It's about a year old, but yeah, there's all that stuff. But these things were not implemented into the game yet, so they probably are still coming, which I think is going to be good. We'll have a lot more weapons, and with the ranking system and the GP redefined in the game now, I think having more weapons is a good thing, especially since we need to broaden the ranks a little bit, make weapons available at different ranks now, so that's probably a good thing. Also, new maps. I personally think that Nexon has a store of new maps waiting for us over the next year. We recently had maps like Crystal Tower and Heavy Metal released, but there was a leak that not many people were able to see. In the original post regarding the release of Crystal Tower, it was taken down literally like 30 minutes after it was put up and reposted with some edits to it, but in the original one, it was stated that all three of the maps, the space station, the desert map, and Crystal Tower itself, were in heavy development. Speaking from experience working on a game design team, actually as the person who designed levels myself, rarely do designers throw away work like that. Actually, never do they. They usually hold on to them for whatever purpose. However, from Nexon's point of view, being a large company that loves money and would not want to waste it designing a new map or paying a new designer to do these designs all over again, we're probably not seeing the end of these other two levels, the desert one and the space station one. Even if they're not the same setting like a space station or the desert, the map design is probably still there. And my idea is that they haven't given up on those map designs yet, and that we will probably see some form of those level designs implemented into new maps over the next year or so. And even during the concept design, fan design maps for the Heavy Metal a while back, Heavy Metal came out of a competition on the forums for whoever could design the best level. There were a lot of entries to that. I think there were like 30 entries, and there were a whole bunch of very well-designed maps. Even Water Strider came from something similar to that. It was a while, I don't know if it was a competition or what it was, but they had a bunch of different possible designs for it, and yeah, they still have those designs, so they might borrow some of those designs from other people in order to actually get the maps out and make more maps. So I think we will see quite a few new maps this coming year. Now, this one is a little bit trickier to explain. Balancing the GP system better. A lot of you are going to be like, oh, but they just rebalanced it. Yes, they did, but they did a terrible job of it. The biggest complaint right now is how, with the new economic system, how unbalanced the GP rates, value, and strength of the GP dollar, if you want to put it, is. GP is now rarer and harder to get, and not only that, but the items that give GP their value and worth in the shop are now more expensive. This drives the value of GP sky high, and with the scarcity of the GP, like how hard it is to get, disproportionately skewed in the downward direction. So while value and price goes up, how hard it is to get GP, or rather how rare it is, also goes up, which means, you know, it's harder to get, so it goes down. Disproportionately skewed goes down, so it goes like that, in opposite directions. So the prices of GP items and availability for longer durations like 7, 30, and 90 days will have to be re-implemented at some point in order to balance the game correctly, because when you re-implement those, you have to create pricing schemes for them, and when you do pricing schemes for those, you have to redo the pricing schemes for the one-day weapons as well. So chances are those will get, you know, auto-corrected, or whatever you want to call them, mathematically fixed. And also, it doesn't take a genius to see that paying 2k GP for an M416 CQB or duels is just a terrible idea. It doesn't take a genius to see that. Now, the last thing is probably the most difficult to conceptually understand, so I'm going to try to explain it the best I can. I also think that the physics engine is going to see an upgrade sometime this coming year. Now, this sounds horribly preposterous, I know that, but let me ask you to think about the moves Nexon has made over the past few months. And these are only a few examples. There have been a lot more of them. But first, there was the grenade physics. For about a week, grenades flew further in a longer arc, and this was an intentional update. This was intentionally put in, although it was also intentionally removed about a week later after it was implemented. I believe this was like back in April, near the end of April, early May. There was a period of time directly after a patch where grenades would fly further than they were intended to, and the arc was also much sharper. So like instead of going like that, grenades would go like that, and it was really hard to control. And this was an intentional update, but it was later removed anyway. A few weeks later, there was also a change to the movement graphics for characters. This was actually something from about a month ago or so, right before they did the massive update to all the GP stuff, the previous update before that. The movement graphics for characters, where in-game movement and targets was made very smooth and fluid, as opposed to hard and fast like it's always been, like where if you move something, your character moves that fast. If you twitch your hand, everyone else in-game sees you twitch as opposed to turn slowly, which is what they had it like for a little while. They had you turning slowly to follow directions. It was very, very smooth. It was not jerky at all, and the movement of in-game targets was much harder to aim at. And so that's another physics engine thing that they were experimenting with that was taken back out, but it's something that we've seen that I think they might be experimenting with as to try to implement something new into the game. They just want to test a whole bunch of stuff. Same thing with the grenade arcing thing. I think that was also part of testing some stuff with players to see how well it would be received or rejected in that case. It was actually very unpopular. Finally, just another example, the 67 frame rate limiter a while back, where they limited your FPS to 67. Now, that was unintentional, but I can say from experience, anything that messes with frame rate is due to one of three major things: a tweak in memory management, which is how your computer manages the memory allocated to the game, graphic speed, like if you play Crysis, if you play Crysis 3, even if it says it takes the same amount of RAM as Counter-Strike Global Offensive, CSGO is still going to run a whole lot faster than Crysis 3, because Crysis 3 is a crazy powerful game engine with a lot of graphic speed. So there's that does it as well, and there's the physics engine itself. Although it was labeled as an unintended accident, which it probably was, it was actually integrated into the game, the 67 frame rate limiter. And that was probably an error because they were testing something in the game itself, inside the engine, because the memory management did not change. A lot of you didn't have problems actually running the game. You could still boot up the game and get into game and play it. So there was not really an issue with memory management. Maybe there was some minor tweaking there, but it wasn't the primary cause for concern. Another thing is that the graphics obviously didn't change. We didn't see Combat Arms turn into Counter-Strike Global Offensive or Crysis 3 overnight, so quite obviously, unless I'm completely blind and missed something horrible in the course of that time, the graphics didn't really change in Combat Arms. So that leaves one thing, and that was the whole game engine being changed, the physics engine being changed, and that could also have to do with the 67 frame rate limiter. Now, while the 67 frame rate limiter was actually a DLL file in the game itself, it was unintentionally put in, and usually when they mess with stuff like that, the only reason they would have to mess with that is because they were changing one of the three things I mentioned earlier: memory management, graphics, or the game engine itself. So those are just some things where I think Combat Arms is heading. I think they're planning on changing a lot of things with the core game itself, so that the game that was released in 2008 physically plays differently than it does now, so that it's going to play differently. That's about all I really wanted to cover today, guys. I know it's been a longer commentary, but thank you for watching. Please rate, comment, subscribe. I will see you in the next video. If you have other ideas for where Combat Arms may be heading, post in the description below. I'm interested in seeing that. I will try to get you guys that link for UCD's video. If I'm unable to, then I will also put that in the description, but I highly suggest you guys go look through his channel and try to find it. It's probably about a year old from the time this video is uploaded. Anyway, guys, thank you, and I will see you in the next video.